Hey folks, this is Jared at Nintendo World Report with some Shenmue 3 news. You might be wondering, why is a Nintendo site reporting on Shenmue 3? Well, I'm a huge Shenmue fan. I was at E3. I could not pass up the opportunity to interview the creator of Shenmue, Yu Suzuki. So, I hope that explains things. That's why we're covering it. This isn't a normal thing where we're going to be covering non-Nintendo games. Anyway, also I want to point out, I did kickstart Shenmue 3, so, however, just because I kickstarted the game, I'm still going to give you my real opinion, I promise. I played Shenmue 3, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to be talking about it in a full preview probably this weekend. Stay tuned for that. But today I just have some news about the game. It's not really positive news. There's a little bit, there's a positive element in it, but it's more negative news. Classic Sega arcade games will not be in Shenmue 3. Shenmue 1 and Shenmue 2 had in-game arcades that you could visit, and you could play games like Space Harrier, Hang-On, Outrun, and Afterburner 2. These were all games that Yu Suzuki created, was the head of the development teams. Great classic arcade games. They're not going to be in Shenmue 3. The specific question I asked Yu Suzuki was, will we be seeing your classic arcade games like Space Harrier and Outrun returning in Shenmue 3? His response was, I'm sorry, we don't have those arcade games, but instead, I do have a lot of other games. Upon hearing this, I said something out loud like, oh, right, we've seen many of these games, thinking of things like Lucky Hit and the Turtle Racing, but Suzuki-san quickly said, you'll see more. So yes, it's a negative. Those classic Sega arcade games are not in it. However, there are definitely more surprises we don't know about. Now, here's the slightly cool thing I mentioned before. Shenmue 3 will not be completely devoid of references to classic Sega arcade games. For example, during the new woodchopping job, a upbeat tune from Afterburner 2 will start playing if you slice multiple pieces of wood in succession. You may have already seen some footage of the woodchopping game from IGN Japan. It's worth noting that footage did not have music in it. All that, what might have been B-roll, was completely devoid of music, and supposedly is from a older version of the game. So what you're about to watch is the woodchopping with the song from Afterburner added in by me in post-production. This is sort of what it was like when you're doing really well.
Hey, yeah. Yes. Perfect. Mm-hmm. Yes. That's it. Good. That's it. Oh. Perfect. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's it. Yes. That's it. Mm-hmm.
As you can see, that's sort of cool. It really gets your heart pumping when the Afterburner 2 music starts going. It's worth noting that if you miss a log after you've been doing well, the music immediately switches to a very calm sounding music, and it'll only switch back to the Afterburner 2 music if you start doing well again. Yu Suzuki described these music changes in correspondence to your actions as a sort of feedback mode. I'll admit, I'm definitely sad that we won't be playing Space Harrier or Outrun in Shenmue 3. It's a little strange, because obviously the fact that the Afterburner 2 music is even in the game does mean that Sega is giving them some rights to other Sega games. In fact, Yu Suzuki said this in regards to the Afterburner 2 music. He said, We, of course, got the proper license from Sega for that. And he seemed to have implied that we might be hearing other music from classic arcade games he worked on. I'm not sure about that, but that was the impression I got. It's also worth noting that there will be arcades in Shenmue 3. We've already seen pictures of the arcades. We've seen pictures of the non-Sega arcade games like QTE title, Excite QTE 3. There was Excite QTE 2 in both Shenmue 1 and 2. Maybe Yu Suzuki is working on some kind of sprite-based arcade game. We don't know, but there are still surprises to be found. To include a quick parallel to a Nintendo game, you might remember the first Animal Crossing, or at least Animal Crossing when it was on the GameCube and on the Nintendo 64 in Japan only, had classic NES games. Now, at that time, that was a great novelty. At that time, there weren't many options to play old Nintendo games. Animal Crossing on the GameCube and Nintendo 64 was long before Virtual Console was a thing, before the NES Classic. Later Animal Crossing games would not need the NES titles because people loved Animal Crossing and they didn't need that kind of gimmick, we'll call it a gimmick, to sell you on the game. But before people really knew what Animal Crossing was, it was a cool selling factor knowing there were NES games in the title. The same with Shenmue. Before I had ever played Shenmue, one of the really cool things that made me want to get the game was the fact that there would be arcades with classic Sega games in them that I could play. Nowadays, I know what Shenmue is, and there are many places I can play those classic Yu Suzuki games. On the 3DS, there's Outrun, there's Space Harrier, there's Afterburner 2, there's Super Hang-On. The Switch already has Outrun and Space Harrier is coming. Most of the Yakuza games have classic Yu Suzuki titles. It is not a big loss not having them in Shenmue 3. Would have it been nice if they were there? Yes. But it's not a big loss, and I'm excited to see what other games and mini-games we'll see in Shenmue 3. As Yu Suzuki said to me, you will see more. We will see more. Anyway, that's my Shenmue 3 talk. Hope I didn't babble too much. Hope this was interesting. Stay tuned to my Shenmue 3 preview, and thank you for watching. Bye.